Henry Moran has been speaking to the England captain, Owen Morgan.
First of all, Owen, what's the sort of expectation? What are you looking to get from this series?
Yeah, I think a few things. I think when a T20 series specifically comes so fastly and sort of condensed, you want guys to be on the money from the first game, because there's no breathing space when you play 2 games in 2 days and there's only 1 day in between the following game. It can come at you quite quickly. And when we're playing a side that we don't necessarily know a lot about and haven't played against a lot before, it can present different challenges as well. So the guys are fully aware that the challenges that Sri Lanka pose, but also we need to be on top of our game as well.
Few injuries around. David Malan, Johnny Bairstow. What's the latest in terms of the strength of your squad injury-wise?
Yeah, both guys are fully fit to play, so they're available for selection.
Jos Buttler spoke about the challenges of the rearranged IPL and international commitments, and with the condensed nature of everything that's happened in the last 12 months, how difficult is it for players, captains, administrators when you've got those sort of pressures and pulls from different directions?
I think it's just a completely different challenge that we've never come up against before. And certainly having been on tour now and in an international team for a long time, you can relate to like really tough challenges about performance or being away from home. But I'd certainly think that this is the toughest that it's been. I think the last 12 months with the isolated bubbles that we've had, the travel restrictions, being away from home, have all culminated in one big challenge on top of trying to perform for your team and your country as best you can. So I'd have to say it's been as tough, if not tougher, than any other year that I've played for England.
In your mind, would the national side and should the national side take precedence over any domestic league?
Yeah, so I think 2 different isolated events. I think when like as a cricketer, you're obviously striving to improve. You want to play for your national team as best you can. And there are certain leagues around the world that if you're a white ball cricketer, you want to play in because they are regarded as the best in the world. And if you go there and compete against the best, or even go there and experience playing with the best, you will no doubt improve your game. So when you commit to something like the IPL and you are selected or picked up at an auction, given the fixtures the way they were pre-tournament, bearing in mind it's only a couple of months previous to that, I think players should still go. And I think that was a really good decision to allow our players to stay out there, both with their development in mind, but also the T20 World Cup in mind this year. I think when it comes to the rescheduled back end of the IPL clashing with fixtures that have been in place and in the pipeline for 6 to 8 months, I think international duty takes precedent.
Will we expect to see a moment of unity ahead of this T20 and ODI series?
Yeah, so we will be very much aligned with the tests guys. I'm just about to go into a match referees meeting with the umpires, Sri Lankan coach and captain, in which we're going to propose the exact same thing that happened during I think it was just before the anthems in the test series.
Yeah.
So if there are anthems, we're going to ask them if they would mind that we participate in something that we're trying to do as a team and have been for a long time. But if that doesn't happen, we'll simply show a display of our feelings during a warm-up by wearing our T-shirts.
What have you made of the challenges and the negative press that cricket's had in the last few weeks with regards to historical tweets and social media?
I think it certainly raises your awareness around the roles that everybody plays, not only as a cricketer, but the role within society and how much scrutiny everybody is under, but also, when things are either taken out of context or open to interpretation, you have to assume now that they will be, which is a strange existence within itself. But I think the protocols that have now been put in place and the procedure that the ECB are going through is probably one that they that hasn't been in place before, but now needs to be in place. And moving forward, it's important for us as players to recognise that.
And just finally, what's your message to the players, particularly in the T20 squad, ahead of what's a huge 6 to 9 months? What's your message going into this series?
Yeah, I think this series and the rest of the white ball summer, which is obviously very condensed, is a huge opportunity to stake our claim as a team and as individuals, both to be selected for the World Cup, but also particularly in T20 cricket. When you dangle a carrot of a number one side in the world on the cusp of a World Cup with very little opportunity in between, it's a huge chance to impress.
So, Henry, there at Cardiff, how's it all looking?
It's looking glorious, Aggers. I have to say, blue skies overhead. There's a few wispy clouds. We've got that familiar line of trees behind the stand in the distance. We've got the river beyond that and the park. You know the view very well. But it is, when the sun is shining, it's a lovely venue, this. The only disappointment, perhaps, is we're not going to see quite as many spectators as many were hoping for. We think it'll be around about 1,500. Right. So it won't be quite the capacity and the numbers that certainly Hugh Morris, the chief executive here, was talking about. 3,000 was the feeling before they hadn't had to follow the Welsh government guidelines, and 1,500 looks the capacity that we're going to see in this game. But either way, it should be a good atmosphere. It should be entertaining. The forecast is set fair, and everything is looking good out there in the middle. There's not a cover to be seen.
We've seen enough of those over the last few days. That sounded like quite typical Owen Morgan, really, sort of quite focused and calm and calculated in the way that he spoke.
It did, and I think there's quite an interesting dynamic going on across these 3 T20 matches. Quite often in English summers, we see the T20s as almost chucked in there, and they're just part of the overall picture without holding that much significance. But these games are important because you've got two of the guaranteed starters, if you like, in England's T20 side, in Ben Stokes and Jofra Archer, missing through injury. So there's a massive opportunity in these 3 games for somebody to put their hand up and say, I'm the person that can make the difference when we look to win this T20 World Cup come the autumn, whether it's in India, whether it's somewhere else. So there is a big opportunity for someone to come in and stake their claim. It looks from what Owen Morgan has said that Moeen Ali is going to come in and be that all-rounder. He spoke about how no side really, unless you're very, very good, can go in with 5 bowlers and no all-rounder. So that suggestion is that Moeen will play, which has been a little bit of a rarity, having missed so much of the series in India. So there is this big opportunity for somebody to stand up, get that chance, play a few good innings. And if we remember, it was here where David Malan against South Africa 4 years ago played his England debut, scored 80 odd runs, and since then hasn't looked back. He's now the number 1 T20 batsman in the world. So there is serious potential for somebody or a number of players to really make a bit of a statement. Yeah,
and I mean, Milan's been talked about in serious terms for the test matches as well, isn't he? So it's a great chance for him just to get his name out there.
Yeah, and there's a number of players that will also be thinking, well, we've seen the struggles England's batsmen have had in the test format. What a chance this is. We expect to see Johnny Bairstow and Milan back from injury. Joss Butler's playing again, Jason Roy. And so there is, and I know it's been spoken about a lot, there is a real strength to this England side in ways that perhaps the test format hasn't quite seen. In this year 2021 so far, the T20 side has been pretty much full strength throughout. And you look at the lineup, barring Stokes and Archer, and this is a really strong England 11 that they'll pick. Whoever they pick is going to be a really strong team. Yeah, and does it feel like a countdown now? I mean, we've been counting down to these big events for ages, haven't we? But with just 6 games to go, does it feel now as if this really is the last path to the T20 World Cup? Yes, but there is, of course, the uncertainty of where it's going to be and how it's going to work, because, of course, we've also got the prospect of these matches to be played in Pakistan and Bangladesh ahead of the T20 World Cup. But at the moment, there's all these discussions about the rearranged IPL as well and where players will play. And we heard Owen Morgan speaking about how international cricket will take precedence, but also the value of playing in these franchise leagues for getting accustomed to facing the best in the world. So there's a lot of T20 cricket that potentially could be played, but these 6 matches in front of the England sort of management, if you like, and in front of Owen Morgan are going to be crucial. And England will be desperate to go one better than they did in the last T20 World Cup. You think back to Calcutta and the pain for Ben Stokes in that game, and then the joy of the 2019 World Cup. If Owen Morgan, who's now been captain of this white ball side for over 6 years, can ensure that his legacy is being double world champions in white ball cricket. That'll be a huge achievement. And you know what he's like. You've been in those interviews, Agus, that steely look.
Oh, yes.
You know how determined he is and what it would mean to him to get that job done.
Yeah. Could see David Willey back in the squad talking about pain. You know, I mean, there's the man who, when he was watching the 19 World Cup in tears when England won, because he'd done so much hard work, of course, and responsible to a large extent of England and the way they completely rebuilt their game. And of course, he was then left out of the squad. So I mean, a good chance for him at least to get back in and hopefully to make the squad this time.
Yeah, 3 ODI appearances against Ireland last summer. That was his only international cricket since May 2019, and his departure heralded the arrival of Jofra Archer. The two were completely linked, and I remember seeing at the time there was that quite moving tweet that David Willey put up of his wife and child and saying, I know that I'm missing out on this World Cup, but I'm ultimately winning at life. And so there was clearly, he was very emotional about having missed out on that World Cup selection, and was quite public about that and the challenges of it. But he'll know that this is realistically, this push towards the T20 World Cup, his last opportunity perhaps to get into an England side in a major ICC event. So he'll be looking to really take his opportunity. He's got the left arm option, no Reece Topley in this squad, so there is the potential, if David Willey can have a good few games, because of the lack of T20 cricket. In fact, it works in your favour. If you can do well in the short amount of time, then you're fresh in the memory, because there isn't then another 12 matches for somebody else to come in and take your place. So this is a big opportunity for David Willey, and I think there's quite a lot of sympathy towards him from within the England camp and from those watching on.
I'm sure. So last one, no actual team news, I suppose, is you're still about nearly 3 hours away from start there, aren't you?
So no team news as yet. No, we expect it'll be whether, I suppose, it's going to be Jos Buttler opening the batting alongside Jason Roy, or whether it's the 50-over partnership of Roy and Bairstow at the top of the order. I suppose that's one of the key questions. Mark Wood, where's he going to play, and is he going to play? Because of course, back-to-back matches, how will that work in terms of his workload? So there's a few little questions there. I think the Moeen Ali decision, from what Morgan said, it seems likely he'll play, and that would have been the big one. Chris Wokes as well, not played 20 cricket since 2015. Will he play? Will it be David Willey? So there's a few questions up in the air. You'd expect across the two nights here in Cardiff, we'll see all of those names playing.